With that down, Chris, what is our third main topic today?
We are now hearing from Joseph H. Hey, John, now that you've seen Spider-Man Far From Home, now in theaters, could you rank your least to most favorite Spider-Man movies?
Well, I mean, as we just mentioned, not only in theaters, but in theaters huge. Once again, just broke the record for opening Tuesday night ever at $39 million. Doing really well. I'll tell you what, I went to a midnight screening on Monday night where they started off with, because who goes to midnight screenings anymore? Who even has midnight screenings anymore? Hardly ever, right? So they had it on one theater. By the afternoon of the screenings, they had expanded it to 2 theaters. And by the time I got there, they had expanded it to 3 theaters at midnight for things that we don't even do anymore. We don't go to midnight screenings anymore. Totally packed out, so not surprised to see those numbers. The Spider-Man franchise is a lot like the Fox X-Men franchise. Couple of bad ones, but a couple of exceptional ones that are amongst the best of all time. All right, so here's the thing about lists. Everybody's list is going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to give you my list. I'm going to throw it over to Rob and ask him for his as well. But I'm going to give you mine. Having seen Spider-Man Far From Home now twice, this is how I put them all together. All right, I'm going to start at number 8. Number 8, I think the worst of them is, I accidentally, the number says Spider-Man 2. That should say 3. Spider-Man 3. And so forgive that little graphical error at the bottom. Spider-Man 3, I believe, is the worst. Yes, even worse than The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It was down to those two for the worst ones. By the way, those are the only 2 films that I even think are poor in this franchise. Everything else I think is actually quite enjoyable. So I'm going to go Spider-Man 3 as the worst. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the second worst. Next up, now we're getting into all good films. The first Spider-Man film. I got it number 6. It's the one that started it all for this franchise, that made the world believe that instead of Superman, you'll believe a man could fly, you'll believe a man can climb up walls. And that's the one that did that. Coming in number 5, I've got the first Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. I really enjoyed that movie. And I know a lot of people were still sour that it wasn't Tobey Maguire anymore and all that kind of stuff. I don't care. I thought that movie was delightful and a lot of fun. And I thought Andrew Garfield was Tom Holland's my favorite Spider-Man now, but I thought Andrew Garfield was a great Spider-Man. And again, I don't usually like romances, but him and Emma Stone in that I thought worked great. So The Amazing Spider-Man is my number 5. At number 4, I've got the new one, Spider-Man Far From Home. I think it's even better than The Amazing Spider-Man. It's funny. It's got the best action, I think, of any Spider-Man movie. As far as pure action goes, the action stuff in this, John Wick 3 just takes what gun fu can be to a level that no one else will ever be able to match. This movie was perfect Spider-Man style combat. And it was just exciting and thrilling when it was on. I love the relationship between MJ and Peter in it. There's so much to like about it. I had a couple of little issues, but there's so much to like about it. So we're getting into the top 4 now, where the margin of error between these 4 is very small, but I'm going to have Spider-Man Far From Home in my number 4 spot. Just slightly ahead of it, I still have Spider-Man Homecoming. Whereas the action I believed was better in Spider-Man Far From Home, I thought just the pure, John Hughes kind of charm of 3 was probably the best of any in the franchise. I just thought it was charming and great and funny, and it gave us a different kind of Spider-Man movie than we'd had before. And still one of the best moments ever in a Spider-Man movie, when Peter goes to pick up his homecoming date and Michael Keaton opens the door. Still one of the best moments ever, only topped by a certain post-credit scene in Spider-Man Far From Home, which we won't go into, of course. At number 2, I've got what was, to me, the greatest comic book movie of all time for a certain number of years, which was Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. Still one of the better and best comic book movies ever made. Love that thing. And for me, still, the best Spider-Man movie ever made, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. To me, remember last year, it wasn't just the best comic book movie of the year, not just the best animated movie of the year. To me, it was the 3rd best overall film of the year last year, which I thought was amazing. So, I got Spider-Man 3, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the original Spider-Man, the first The Amazing Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Again, those top 4... slim gaps between, very slim gaps. You could come along and rearrange those top 4 to me, and I won't have an argument with you. But that's how I've got it at this point right now. All right, Rob, you've now had a chance. As of yesterday, you went and saw Spider-Man Far From Home. You had a great time at it. Starting from the bottom, how would you order these films? Do you want me to bring my list up just so you got the visual reference?
Yeah,
Are you good? Okay.
Yeah. Mine's a little different than yours.
Mine's gonna be a little bit different than yours. All right.
First of all, I'm going to say that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is not on my list because it's animated, and as I've told you before, animated movies are not real. They're not real. So that's in a special category off to the side. But at the bottom of my list is Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Right.
Which I just the way that Electro was portrayed just was grating. Above that is Spider-Man 3.
So I'm switching those from your order.
Right. Then I'm going to go to Spider-Man Homecoming.
Oh, you got it that far down.
That far down.
That far down the list.
Then I'm going to Amazing Spider-Man. Then I'm going to go to Spider-Man. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Then I'm going to go to Spider-Man Far From Home.
And the top of my list is Spider-Man 2.
It's just such an I just remember when that came out. Still to me, it still holds up.
I
was watching it the other day. I just threw on Spider-Man 2. I forgot both Spider-Man 1. I find it schizophrenic, but the first half of Spider-Man 1, where Tobey Maguire is becoming Spider-Man, is utterly delightful. It might be the best opening or the best portrayal of Spider-Man, but then the Green Goblin is so goofy. It's like, are we? And the thing about this Raimi Spider-Man movies, if they take place in movie world, like it doesn't take place in a New York that I recognize that even exists. It's movie New York.
Right.
Whereas
Right.
I thought the New York in The Amazing Spider-Man, and certainly the New York in Spider-Man Far From Home or Spider-Man Homecoming, felt more real to me, if that makes any sense. And my favorite word, verisimilitude. The verisimilitude of the New York milieu that these Spider-Mans take place in. There's 3 different layers of realism in New York City. And that's probably a weird thing to say when it comes to Spider-Man movies, but for me it is. And the realistic portrayal of New York is important. And Raimi's New York isn't as real as the New York in the web version or in the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of New York. Is that weird?
No, New York should be a character in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, Chris. You've also had a chance to see the film.
Yes.
Where would you rank these things? And particularly, where would you rank Far From Home?
I put Far From Home pretty high up. I had to write mine down so I wouldn't screw it up. But in last place for me is obviously Jazz Hands Parker, Spider-Man 3. Get out of here.
Come on.
Why did they do dancing in that and the sequel to Fantastic Four? Why were there dance numbers? Then I would probably go Amazing Spider-Man number 2, Spider-Man 1.
It's funny that all 3 of us have those 2 films as our bottom 2.
Yeah. Tobey Maguire was just never my Spider-Man, so I kind of had a with him. Then Amazing Spider-Man 1, then Spider-Man 2 because of Alfred Molina, because he's an amazing Doc Ock.
So good.
So good. Then I would go Homecoming. And then something neither of you mentioned that I think we should count as a movie is the PS4 game, because that is some of the best Spider-Man storytelling. It is so good.
That's interesting.
It's really, really well done. Then I would do Far From Home. And then I would do Spider-Verse. I want to see Far From Home again and see if it changes my mind. But as of right now, Spider-Verse is just so perfect to me. I love it.
See, I gotta agree with you, because there are hot toys being made from the Spider-Man video game, but there are no hot toys from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So you might be right there.
There we go.
Hot toys really is pretty much where I draw the line.
I'll tell you what, I haven't played my Spider-Man game in a while, but Ann and I were walking home from the theater last night after watching Spider-Man again. I'm like, I got to load up that Spider-Man game.
You do, because now you'll get the suits.
Oh, just with the swinging through the city and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, now I really want to go and start playing this thing.
You got to do it, and now you can download a free thing of the stealth suit.
Well,
so you can have that skin.
By the way, you just brought something up. I think that swinging through New York City is also a big part of Spider-Man movies.
Yes.
And it's not a spoiler to say that there is a scene of swinging through the city in Spider-Man.
What?
Far
A Spider-Man
From Home.
movie has swinging through the city?
I really enjoyed the swinging in this. There's one element of it that I'm not going to talk about, but there's one element of the way they depicted swinging through the city that I really liked.
Yeah, anyway, so there you have it, guys. That's how we would rank these films. Of course, everybody's list is going to look a little bit different. How do you rank the films now? Jump on down into the comments section and let us know your thoughts. All right.